All right, so I've been fixing a couple of things on the Thunderbird since the last video I put out where we got it running on actually last weekend, so last Saturday. Today's Saturday again, and I fixed a few things. A few things more have come up that I've kind of been watching and trying to kind of sort out. So I'll just take you for a quick peek here. Sorry if the lighting's kind of weird right now. But anyways, so the first, I guess, in no particular order, but I was having what felt like kind of like a teeny bit of a bog off idle, maybe like a little stumble off of idle. So, I don't know if that's an ignition thing or a timing thing, but it picks up like right away again. So my first thing I'm going to try is I moved the pin on the accelerator pump. So according to some other sources, if you get these carbs, and mine was in the center pin before. Let me zoom that in a little bit, if it'll let me. There we go. Anyway, so center is standard from what I understand. This pin is supposed to be rich, and that hole is supposed to be lean. So I moved the pin to what I think is supposed to be rich, and it seems like all that really does is it just moves this up a little bit higher in the bore. So you get a little bit fatter of a shot, or a longer shot, I guess, if you will. So we'll see if that makes any difference. This pin, it's just a kind of like a wedge pin. You flare the outside, so those are starting to break up, get loose. So gonna have to see if I can find another one of these days. So there's that. Had a I'm planning to race this car eventually. And I knew I had to be taking apart a couple lines today, so I decided to swap over to steel or metal fuel filters because NHRA rules, even for drop-in night, that I can, from the rules that I read. Now I don't know if they catch me on this or something, but anyways, I had plastic filters, and you're not allowed to have plastic or glass filters according to the rules that our local track has, which I think are NHRA rules, but I'm not completely 100% sure on that one. Anyway, so switched it out to steel. Now the only problem is now I can't see what's going on with those, as far as flow and see what kind of junk I'm getting in there. But I am still getting junk in my line, and it shouldn't theoretically be making it past the sock. Now the fuel is dirty, so one of these days I do want to put a new tank in there, or at least drop it and give it a good clean. But I think what's happening is the factory steel line is rusted, and it's picking up stuff from the line, because nothing should be coming through the sock in the fuel tank, but I'm still getting some debris coming through. So it's probably my line mostly, and I know my tank's also dirty as well. So anyways, hopefully that won't cause a problem. I'm gonna think on that a little bit. And then last week I had a fuel leak. If those of you that following along, I had kind of reconfigured the hard line that I had set up before, that my friend Lauren had bent up for me actually when we rebuilt the motor, which is the way it was supposed to be. So it would come off your pump, and there's a hard line going right to there. But because of the way the system and setup was going, that didn't really work for me. Anyways, so that connection, after messing with it, somehow it caused it to start leaking. So the outside of the pump had the hard line coming out before, and I just put a 5/16 hose barb on it instead, and just connected and actually, because I had tried that before and it seemed like it was a different thread, so I was looking around trying to find like a fine thread version of that, and turns out it was. And then I tested it with what was actually there, and it is regular. The fitting on there I think would just be straight thread. So anyways, put a hose barb on there, and just had to use some gas rated Teflon for that. So not leaking anymore. All my connections are good. And then the other thing well, in a bit, I'm probably going to pull a spark plug or two and do a quick check on the plugs, see how they're doing. I had widened out my jets since last summer, so we'll see how it's going. It seems like it's running a little bit better now like that, but there was so many problems. I should have maybe waited on that. I did it because I had the carb apart, but but then you don't know which repair actually fixed the problem if you do it all at once. So anyways, the other thing too is my fuel oil pressure gauge is not working very well. So it'll sometimes read, sometimes it won't read, and it's not related to like acceleration. But I need a good working oil gauge. So I'm going to do a test here. So basically, I didn't know this prior to doing a little bit of research, but basically how this works, these gauges work, and any electrical gauge, it goes off your sending unit, which the oil pressure, as it comes up, it will increase your ground. It'll make a better connection, essentially, if I understand correctly. And which will then, correspond to your gauge reading. And this is an electronic gauge on this car. Anyway, so one way you can test that is you can jump the wire to a known good ground and turn the ignition on. And if that goes high, and you can repeat that maybe once or twice, that your connection's good, and so the gauge should be good, and then that should rule out that, and then most likely it would be the sending unit is faulty. That is an aftermarket sending unit. I think I just bought it off of Rock Auto, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I don't remember what brand it was or anything. So I'm going to do that. And so what I'm going to do, I'll just show in the engine bay here. I just got it hooked up to a random a screw that I had for a previous ground. And then on the sending unit, just going to unhook that and wedge this in. They're real good. Make sure I get a good ground. You could also poke it on something perhaps, but going to do that, get this grounded out, and then going to try the ignition. And if that operates the gauge fine, then I know that that's not the problem. That is the sending unit. So I'm going to get that hooked up. Okay. So I got the ground ground lead for the oil gauge hooked up to that ground there, and gonna turn the accessories on. Okay. And then the other thing too, I forgot to mention, my understanding is that it's supposed to read like high. It's supposed to go all the way high. So it's going on, but then it's dropping really, really oddly. So I don't think it should be dropping that slowly. Let me zoom this in a little bit. That's kind of what also was happening too, is when I'd fire up the car, it would creep up pretty slowly. So makes me think that something's going on more with my gauge. Because the way I understand it, if the gauge is, not tired out or something and it's working properly, is that when it's grounded out, fully grounded out, it should hop up too high, like right away. So I guess it does go up right away. And then see, sometimes jiggling will do something. And so part of what it is, what I'm worried about is, so I just shut the ignition off and it's still not dropping. So that's not reliable, because by the time, yeah, if you're just normal driving, it'd probably be fine. But in like a race application, that's not, you need like instant readout, especially if you know, while I'm doing test and tune to find out whether or not that my sump, aftermarket sump, or my aftermarket pan baffling, and shameless plug for the video on that, but you can go check that out if you're interested. But anyways, to see if that works or not, I need instant readout, or like very quick readout. And so I'm pretty sure whatever's going on is more of a problem with this. Could be a combination. So anyways, that kind of answers my question, because that's not fast enough. I mean, maybe it would be a little different if it was actually running, but going from, you know, full connection to off. If I was reading here and I ran my pump dry and it waited like, you know, 10 seconds for it to go down, I'm wrecked. You know, I just wrecked my motor. So that being said, I think I'm going to go ahead and get set up with a new pump. So, sorry, a new gauge. I'm still debating whether or not to go electronic or a fluid gauge. I'm leaning kind of more towards fluid right now, kind of because I already have so much extra wiring going everywhere. It wouldn't be that hard, I suppose. I don't want to dig into the dash again and try to find the original, you know, the current ground wire going there. So I'm not sure. I'm going to think on that one a little bit. The nice thing about the fluid gauge is you should have a lot more precise readout, and more, if I'm not mistaken, a lot faster readout. So anyways, stay tuned for that. So there's that test. And then I'm going to, I think the last thing to do, I will take the car for a test drive and find out if there's any difference with that dead spot. And then I'm going to take a plug reading. So actually, I'll probably do that before I drive, because my motor's a little cooler right now, and if I drive it, it's going to get hot. Okay, so I'm going to pull this first plug here and take a peeksy poo. So I'm not I'm anything but an expert on plug reading. So I would have to consult my manual, or somebody on here could put something that looks to me like it's burning hot, if I remember correctly. I know it might not be showing up in camera. Actually, I'm gonna go grab my Haynes manual, because I have a plug chart. If I'm not mistaken, that's actually looking pretty good. It's definitely not oily. Normal symptoms: brown to grayish tan. Color inside electrode work. Correct heat range for engine and operating condition. Definitely not too hot. Definitely not worn. Carbon deposits, no. Nothing. Looks good. I thought it was good, but I'm not an expert. So the one thing, there's a bit of carbon around the outside. That maybe, but yeah. These are Motorcraft plugs that I got from the Ford dealership, actually. So we shall see. But yeah, that one looks decent. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this one back in. Contact looks good. Click. Okay, so I got my plugs red. They all look at least consistent, so I think they're good. So I'm going to take it for a rip here and see if there's any difference with the bog. So got to fire it up, and you can see fuel pressure gauge responds right away, but the gauge doesn't. So it could be a combination of the sending unit and or the thing. I suppose I could try buying a sending unit and starting with that. We'll see. And especially when it's a little colder, idles right around 500 RPM, which is, I think, about perfect for this car. And I'm gonna try to back out the yard here. What I need is a GoPro. First hit seems a little more promising. Right off of idle, so first impression is that it seems better. A little more torquey right off the bat. So maybe just needed that little extra shot. So yeah, if anybody happens to be running a Autolite or Motorcraft 4300 or a carb like that with the same style accelerator pump, I guess just give it a try. Alternatively, if you're bogging, I guess it could be too rich, it could be too much. So you could try thinning it out. But, and I don't really know off the top of my head what a lean bog versus like a rich bog would feel like in this car. But yeah, try if it's if it's in the center position. For me, I'm almost positive it was lean, which seems to be the case. So, but anyways, it's probably a little too soon to tell for sure, because sometimes it just, it's not a perfect way to tell, because I'm gonna have to drive it for a bit to actually tell if it really did go away, if you know what I mean. So we'll see, but first impressions are that it does seem better. So anyways, hope you enjoyed that video, and hopefully that was helpful for anybody, and